Hello everyone, welcome to Broadview. My name is Joseph. As soon as Russia and Ukraine went to war, global prices skyrocketed. Gas prices rose by a third from just February to early March. International prices for many foodstuffs is also rising. These global changes are reminding many people of a worrying prophecy from the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation is the last part of the New Testament. It depicts a horrific scene of the Final Judgement. Roughly speaking, the story goes that at the end of the world, a lamb will break the 7 seals of the book and call forth 4 knights on white, red, black, and gray horses, who will bring plague, war, famine, and death. After the appearance of the 4 horsemen, more terrible disasters will follow. However, after the chaos, those who survive will enter a new era. The prelude to a possible coming doomsday is the arrival of the 4 horsemen. People are used to calling these 4 figures the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. The first to appear is supposed to be the rider on the white horse, who carries a bow and arrow and is generally seen as a symbol of pestilence and plague. Then comes the Red Horseman, who represents war. The 3rd horseman rides a black horse and represents famine. The 4th one is the Grey Horseman, who symbolizes death. When the 4 horsemen will come has always been a hot topic of speculation. Hollywood has made countless movies on this topic. However, Hollywood only treats it as an interesting story that does well in the box office. Few people take the prophecy of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse seriously in this era. It wasn't until 2020 that people suddenly realized that the vanguard of the 4 knights might already be here. In just over 2 years, from the end of 2019 to the beginning of 2022, COVID-19 spread around the world, affecting 224 countries. So far, official numbers say that 448 million people have been infected and more than 6 million people have died. During this time, people began panicking. Could this be the arrival of the legendary White Horseman, we ask? In the second half of 2021, it seemed that the global epidemic had been brought under control. Apart from local conflicts in Africa and some parts of the Middle East, the Red Horseman's promise of war all but disappeared, and alarms settled down. But unexpectedly, as soon as 2022 began, the Russian war caused a stir. Of the 4 horsemen, the white and the red, who represent the plague and war, may have already arrived. Might the Black Horseman arrive next? A reminder here, the black one represents famine. I mean, if we just observe global phenomenon, there is a parallel. What do you think? Though many here are aware of how the media has lied and manipulated the narrative, these things have nonetheless taken place. Odessa Seaport. This is Ukraine's coastal port on the Black Sea, which used to be bustling and prosperous. Ukrainian agricultural products are loaded and shipped from here to be sold all over the world. Grain shipments set sail from here and enter the Mediterranean Sea through the Turkish Strait and are then unloaded in Egypt. Egypt is currently the world's largest importer of wheat. Freighters enter the Red Sea from Egypt through the Suez Canal and then embark on a journey through the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean on through the Gulf of Aden. Others embark westward toward the Mediterranean Sea and enter the Atlantic Ocean through the Strait of Gibraltar. The wheat, oats, corn, and sunflower oil produced by Ukraine's fertile black soil reaches the tables of people on all continents through these routes. The port of Odessa is the largest port in Ukraine. Odessa Oblast, where the port of Odessa is located, is the largest state in Ukraine and the 2nd largest agricultural state, smaller only than the neighboring state of Kherson. The coastal climate is humid and mild, which makes southern Ukraine a land of abundance and a granary for many countries around the world. But as of 2022, the port of Odessa no longer enjoys the peace and prosperity of its past. The busy container cranes on the wharf are all idle as the flames of the Russian-Ukrainian war burn through the area. At the beginning of March, the Russian army took control of the port of Kherson and then set their sights on Odessa. Once Odessa falls, Ukraine's main access to the Black Sea would be cut off, and the chain connecting this land of abundance to the dining tables of people from all over the world would also be cut off. The Black Horseman, representing famine in the biblical apocalypse, might be closer than we had anticipated. Though if you've been paying attention, there has been talk of food shortages for the last couple years, though it seems now it's really a threat. If you think the only trick the Black Horseman has up his sleeve is cutting off the export of Ukrainian grain, you're wrong. He's got another weapon aimed at the export of Russian grain. As Russia is now being subject to global sanctions and has been kicked out of the international banking network SWIFT, its international trade is difficult to settle normally. Apart from exports to a few countries such as China, Russia's grain exports to the rest of the world have also been cut off. According to statistics, from 2017 to 2021, the Ukraine and Russia both rank among the top 10 countries in the world in wheat production. Together, they account for 14% of the global wheat production. These two countries also export wheat, accounting for nearly 30% of the global wheat export market. According to the USDA, Ukrainian wheat exports were having a record year before the Russian invasion, while Russian wheat exports were slowing down. And it's not just wheat. Staples like corn, soybean, oats, barley, and more are all flagship products of Russia and Ukraine. Even our cooking sunflower oil is also imported from these two countries. In fact, these two countries account for 60% of the world's sunflower oil production. So, which regions depend most on Ukraine for food imports? The answer is North Africa and the Middle East. These regions, which are closely linked to Black Sea shipping routes and have dry climates, are most dependent on Ukrainian crop exports. For various reasons, Egypt, once the granary of the Roman Empire, now relies on the wheat from Ukraine, the granary of Europe, to feed a population of 85.8 million people. Lebanon's dependence on Ukraine wheat is 50%, meaning that more than half of the wheat consumed in the country comes from the Ukraine. Libya is 43%, Tunisia is 32%, and Egypt is over 15%. For the Middle East and North Africa, which have always been politically turbulent, closing the doors of European granaries to them means that prices there are bound to rise, and social unrest is likely to be imminent. Some are intrigued at the Black Horseman's weapon, the pair of balances. Well, what's it mean? In St. John's vision that was recorded in the book of Revelation, he sees a rider holding a pair of balances sitting atop a black horse. St. John hears a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, "A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine." It sounds perhaps like words from a businessman at the time, but is there deeper cryptic meaning? To understand this sentence accurately, we need to understand the circumstances at the time. The book of Revelation was written on the Greek island of Patmos during the 1st century AD. At that time, Greece was under the control of the Roman Empire. Back then, scales used by the Romans for weighing things looked like this, and were made of copper measuring cylinders. The balance was used to weigh valuables like gold and silver. But the balance held by the Black Knight is used to weigh food, which means food has become overpriced. It's also understood that this would be used in times of famine. According to the prices of the time, 1 penny could buy 12 liters of wheat and 36 liters of barley. But after the arrival of the Black Knight, 1 penny would only be able to buy 1 liter of wheat and 3 liters of barley, meaning the price would be 12 times what it used to be. It means that food prices are soaring and famine is imminent, which is why it's said that the Black Horseman represents famine. So what will happen to food prices in 2022? Just a week after the war between Russia and the Ukraine began, the price of wheat in the world shot up dramatically. Although it hasn't increased to be as outrageous as 12 times its original price, it has reached the highest price it's been in 60 years. On the Chicago Board of Trade, wheat prices rose 43%. Now the price of wheat futures has risen sharply, which means that people are expecting food shortages in the future. The domino effect that follows is that everything related to wheat, like pizza and pasta, will increase in price. Another example of this is McDonald's. That's right, McDonald's Japan branch has announced that they are raising the price of hamburgers and chicken nuggets. But wait, what do chicken nuggets have to do with flour? Well, it's associated with chicken feed, which is associated with wheat. The company says raw materials, labor, and transportation costs have all ballooned due to the Russian-Ukrainian war. Now, one of the most asked questions is there room for food prices to continue to rise? So let's take a look at the picture below. This is the Ukrainian territory occupied by Russia as of early March 2022. From the picture, we can see that although the Russian theater isn't too big, the port of Odessa is severely threatened. More than 50% of Ukraine's foreign trade freight operates from this port. The shutdown of the port of Odessa would essentially mean the end of the Ukrainian exports. On the eastern side of the Black Sea is the Sea of Azov between the Crimean Peninsula and Russia, which is connected to the Black Sea by the narrow Kerch Strait. The Russian Black Sea fleet could easily block this strait. At present, Russia has indeed begun to restrict the activities of merchant ships in the Sea of Azov, so the trading route in the Black Sea is currently being cut off. The unfortunate reality is that as soon as the war began, Ukrainian farmers either joined the army or escaped danger, so there are few left to sow wheat and other crops. In other words, not only is there no way to export the already harvested crops, but there's also no way to carry on with farming. What are your predictions with future food pricing and shortages? The hooves of the Black Horseman, of famine's horse, are beating ever nearer. The arrival of this one is most frightening, I would say. He is the only horseman with a name, and the only one without a weapon, because he himself is a weapon. The Grey Horseman and his horse are pale and lifeless, and he has the ability to extinguish all life by natural means. His name is Death. The book of Revelation says that these four horsemen take turns wreaking havoc on Earth, killing a quarter of the population on the planet. Such a statement may horrify many viewers, I understand, but don't panic. There are more reassuring reports out there that say the situation is not that bad. Although the war has led to the closure of 2 major granaries of Russia and Ukraine, the good news is that there are more than 2 granaries in the world. Other granaries will open their doors to welcome consumers and fill the vacancies. This is the latest report from March 2022 released by the USDA. You can see that although Ukraine was the top wheat exporter in 2021, India's wheat exports are also rising rapidly. In 2021, India's exports increased by 1.5 million tons. Although it hasn't caught up to the Ukraine just yet, it has a promising future as an alternative option to Ukraine's land of abundance. And this isn't even including the United States, Canada, or Australia, which are time-honored granaries around the world. Of course, these are all partially the US government's attempts to maintain stability by reassuring people that there are alternative crop exporters out there. But even those with very basic knowledge of agriculture will know that this industry is seasonal. This is just common sense. Unlike factories, you can't just work overtime to fill extra orders at any time. Once agricultural production is interrupted, you'll have to wait at least a full year or harvest season before the deficit can be made up by other producers. It is inevitable that food prices will rise to a certain extent. The book of Revelation is a prophecy from about 2,000 years ago. The arrival of the Four Horsemen is not a single point in time, but a process. They will come one by one, and it may take 10 years or maybe 20 years, if it's indeed true. No one can know for sure, but you don't need to be too pessimistic because the outcome of this prophecy may be changed. It's been mentioned in the ancient prophecies of many peoples that a great purging of mankind will come alongside the great purification of mankind. The great elimination and purification of the entire universe is in fact the process of removing the negative energy and life forms, leaving behind the good energy and life forms to create a healthier universe that'll exist endlessly. Therefore, if human beings can purify their minds and improve spiritually before this big event, then this last apocalypse may not come. Remember a video that we did previously on near-death experiences? The Japanese astronomer Kyuchi, who saw the future of mankind in his near-death experience, saw 2 overlapping translucent scenes, one of human destruction and one of human beings living happily. It seems that the outcome of our futures may be resting in our own hands. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.